Kena Upanishadum. May my limbs, speech, vital air, eyes, ears, strength, and all the senses be fully developed. All that is revealed by the Upanishads is Brahman. May I never deny Brahman, may Brahman never disown me. Let there be no repudiation from Brahman, let there be no infidelity from my side. May all the dharmas extolled by the Upanishads shine in me who am intent on knowing the self. May they shine in me. Peace. 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 Wished by whom is the mind directed to fall, on its objects? Directed by whom does the foremost vital air move? By whom is wished this speech which the people utter? Who is the radiant being that unites the eye and the ear, with their objects? Because he is the ear of the ear, the mind of the mind, the speech of speech, the vital air of the vital air, and the eye of the eye, the wise, freeing themselves from the identity with the senses, and renouncing the world, become immortal. The eye does not reach there, nor speech, nor mind, nor do we know, it's mature. Therefore we don't know how to impart instruction about it. Distinct indeed is that from the known and distinct from the unknown. Thus have we heard from the ancients who expounded it to us. That which is not uttered by speech, that by which the word is expressed, know that alone to be Brahman, and not this, non-Brahman, which is being worshipped. That which one does not think with the mind, that by which, they say, the mind is thought, know that alone to be Brahman, and not this, non-Brahman, which is being worshipped. That which man does not see with the eye, that by which man sees the activities of the eye, know that alone to be Brahman, and not this, non-Brahman, which is being worshipped. That which man does not hear with the ear, that by which man hears the ear's hearing, know that alone to be Brahman, and not this, non-Brahman, which is being worshipped. That which man does not smell with the organ of smell, that by which the organ of smell is attracted towards its objects, know that alone to be Brahman, and not this, non-Brahman, which is being worshipped. If you think, I know Brahman rightly, you have known but little of Brahman's true nature. What you know of his form and what form you know among the gods, too is but little. Therefore Brahman is still to be inquired into by you. I think Brahman is known to me. I think not I know Brahman rightly, nor do I think it is unknown. I know, and I do not know also. He among us who knows that knows it, Brahman, not that it is not known nor that it is known. It is known to him to whom it is unknown, he to whom it is known does not know it. It is unknown to those who know, and known to those who know not. When Brahman is known as the inner self, of cognition, in every state of consciousness, it is known in reality, because one thus attains immortality. Through one's own self is attained strength and through knowledge is attained immortality. Here if one has realized, then there is accomplishment. Here if one has not realized, then there is utter ruin. Having realized Brahman in all beings, and having withdrawn from this world, the wise become immortal. It is well known that Brahman indeed achieved victory for the gods. But in that victory which was Brahman's the gods reveled in joy. They thought, ours alone is this victory, ours alone is this glory. Brahman knew this their pride and appeared before them, but they knew not who this Yaksha, worshipful being, was. They said to Agni, O Jatavita, know thou this as to who this Yaksha is. He said, so be it. 3-4. Agni approached it. It asked him, who art thou? He replied, I am Agni or I am Jatavita. It said, what is the power in thee, such as thou art? Agni said, I can burn all this that is upon the earth. For him, it placed there a blade of grass and said, burn this. Agni went near it in all haste, but he could not burn it. He returned from there, and said, I am unable to understand who that Yaksha is. Then, the gods said to Vayu, O Vayu, know thou this as to who this Yaksha is. He said, so be it. Vayu approached it. It said to him, who art thou? He replied, I am Vayu or I am Maharshiva. 3-9. It said, what is the power in thee, such as thou art? Vayu said, I can take hold of all this that is upon the earth. For him, it placed there a blade of grass and said, take this up. Vayu went near it in all haste, but he could not take it up. He returned from there, and said, I am unable to understand who that Yaksha is. Then, the gods said to Indra, O Magava, know thou this as to who this Yaksha is? He said, so be it. He approached it, but it disappeared from him. In that space itself, where the Yaksha had disappeared, Indra approached an exceedingly charming woman. To that Uma decked in gold, or to the daughter of the Himalayas, he said, who is this Yaksha? She said, it was Brahman. In the victory that was Brahman's you were reveling in joy. Then alone did Indra know for certain that it was Brahman. Therefore, these gods viz. Agni, Vayu, and Indra excelled other gods, for they touched Brahman who stood very close and indeed knew first that it was Brahman. Therefore is Indra more excellent than the other gods, for he touched Brahman who stood very close and indeed knew first that it was Brahman. Its instruction, regarding meditation, is this. It is similar to that which is like a flash of lightning or like the winkling of the eye. This is, the analogy of Brahman, in the divine aspect. Then, follows, the instruction through analogy on the aspect of the individual self. It is well known that, the mind seems to attain to it, that it is continually remembered by the mind, and that the mind possesses the thought, regarding it. That Brahman is known indeed as Tadvana, worshipful or adorable to all beings, that is to be worshipped as Tadvana. To him who knows it thus verily all beings pray. Disciple. Revered Sir, speak Upanishad to me. Teacher. I have spoken Upanishad to thee. Of Brahman verily is the Upanishad that I have spoken. Of this knowledge austerity, self-restraint, and action are the feet, the Vedas are all limbs and truth is the abode. He who knows this thus, with his sins destroyed, becomes firmly seated in the infinite, blissful, and supreme Brahman. He becomes firmly seated, in Brahman. May my limbs, speech, vital air, eyes, ears, strength, and all the senses be fully developed. All that is revealed by the Upanishads is Brahman. May I never deny Brahman, may Brahman never disown me. Let there be no repudiation, from Brahman, let there be no infidelity from my side. May all the dharmas extolled by the Upanishads shine in me who am intent on knowing the self. May they shine in me. Peace. 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 Here ends the Kena Upanishad, as contained in the Samaveda. Kena Upanishad commentary. The mover of the moved. In the world we see a prime duality, cause and effect. Yet, we see no cause for the world itself. Inquiry into its cause naturally arises. The lazy and the cowardly insist there is no cause and pursue their exploitation of the world and its inhabitants. The worthy and the bold, however, seek to know. Many are the theories set forth by profound thinkers. But those who have gone beyond thought into pure knowing have unanimously told us of the cause, and in that insight have also come to perfectly understand the effect, the world and all within it. The question the Kena Upanishad opens with a question that is answered in the rest of the Upanishad. At whose behest does the mind think? Who bids the body live? Who makes the tongue speak? Who is that effulgent being that directs the eye to form and color and the ear to sound? This is one of the few philosophical questions that really matter, for if we come to the wrong conclusion it will cloud, or even distort, our understanding of life. For example, if we say God, or nature, or happenstance, we will in essence be saying that we have nothing to do with our existence, that a force far beyond us is making all this occur to us, that we are like seaweed being carried along on the wave of the sea, able to yearn for situations and things but unable to bring anything about. If we are theists we believe that if we somehow do the needful, in response God will give us what we want, but still it will be his doing and beyond our capacity to accomplish or even hold on to once we have it. This view of ourselves as utterly helpless and therefore utterly insignificant in the vast universe will cripple and frustrate us, distorting us profoundly. You are nothing becomes the watchword of our life, a life which bears that maxim out. Hopeless and helpless we drift along, controlled by everything that is other than us. This is truly a living hell. Into this darkness shines the realization embodied in the Upanishads, a realization that we will somehow recognize from deep within us, for that realization is ours on the inmost level of our existence. We do not learn the truth, we recognize it. All right, then, who makes the mind think, the body live, the faculty of speech to manifest, and causes the senses to operate? The answer: the self is ear of the ear, mind of the mind, speech of speech. He is also breath of the breath, and eye of the eye. Having given up the false identification of the self with the senses and the mind, and knowing the self to be Brahman, the wise, on departing this life, become immortal. The ear, mind, speech, breath, and eye are only instruments, only messengers. The one who causes them to function, the hearer of hearing, the witness of the mind and thought, the understander of speech, the source of the breath and the seer of seeing, is the Atman, the Self. External experience may be illusory, but if we trace the illusion back and back to the perceiver of perception, we will find the reality that is the Self. In a motion picture we see so many images, so many illusions, but when the picture stops we see the pure white screen that was behind it all the time, without which no picture would have been possible. Such is the Self. Knowing the Self to be none other than Brahman, the Absolute, rebirth is no more. Swami Prabhavananda has translated the word dhira as the wise, but in actuality dhira means those who are steadfast, in this instance those who are firmly established in the practice of yoga and in the realization arising from yoga. Brahman, the inexpressible Brahman, is beyond all sensory perception or intellectual comprehension. Yet we can infer the existence of Brahman by that which it causes to occur, by the consciousness that does perceive and comprehend. So in conclusion the Upanishad says this, which really needs little comment: him the eye does not see, nor the tongue express, nor the mind grasp. Him we neither know nor are able to teach. Different is he from the known, and different is he from the unknown. So have we heard from the wise. That which cannot be expressed in words but by which the tongue speaks, know that to be Brahman. Brahman is not the being who is worshipped of men. That which is not comprehended by the mind but by which the mind comprehends, know that to be Brahman. Brahman is not the being who is worshipped of men. That which is not seen by the eye but by which the eye sees, know that to be Brahman. Brahman is not the being who is worshipped of men. That which is not heard by the ear but by which the ear hears, know that to be Brahman. Brahman is not the being who is worshipped of men. That which is not drawn by the breath but by which the breath is drawn, know that to be Brahman. Brahman is not the being who is worshipped of men. When the Upanishad says that we do not know Brahman, it refers to intellectual knowledge. Therefore, as it continues, we cannot teach Brahman as an intellectual subject. When it says that Brahman is different from the unknown, it is not speaking of Brahman's unknowability, but rather that Brahman is not an unknown object that in time the intellect will come to know. The most striking part of this passage is the statement that Brahman is not the being who is worshipped of men. This presents two significant points. First, that Brahman is not an object, but the eternal subject, and consequently cannot be worshipped as an object. Second, men cannot relate to Brahman at all, but those that have passed beyond all relative identity can experience Brahman as their own self. Knowing that is ignorance, and unknowing that is knowing. At the beginning, all classical commentators say that in this second part of the Kena Upanishad the first two verses are a dialogue between a teacher and a student, and the remaining three verses are an exposition of the discussion. First, the teacher says to the student, if you think that you know well the truth of Brahman, know that you know little. What you think to be Brahman in yourself, or what you think to be Brahman in the gods, that is not Brahman. What is indeed the truth of Brahman you must therefore learn. The student responds, I cannot say that I know Brahman fully. Nor can I say that I know him not. He among us knows him best who understands the spirit of the words, nor do I know that I know him not. To help us in this, here is the translation of Swami Gambhirananda. Teacher, if you think, I have known Brahman well enough, then you have known only the very little expression that it has in the human body and the little expression that it has among the gods. Therefore Brahman is still to be deliberated on by you. Student, I think Brahman is known. I do not think, I know Brahman well enough, i.e. I consider not that I do not know, I know and I do not know as well. He among us who understands that utterance, not that I do not know. I know and I do not know as well, knows that Brahman. That may have only compounded the bewilderment, but we can untangle it with patience. These verses are excellent examples of the difficulty we have when we try to speak the unspeakable and explain the unexplainable. An easy mistake: Brahman is not only everywhere, but actually is all things. This, too, we cannot exactly comprehend, and to express it simplistically is to make things much worse. Because of this, it is easy for those who have experienced only a hint of Brahman, even a hint of which is tremendous, to say, now I know Brahman. But that would be like someone who has seen a cup of sea water saying, now I have seen the sea. If we do not know Brahman fully, we cannot truly say that we know Brahman at all. Yet, there is a knowing that is beyond the intellect and is both knowing and unknowing in an experiential sense. This is why a medieval mystical English text on the knowledge of God is called the Cloud of Unknowing. When we know Brahman, we know that it cannot known in the human sense of knowing. The same concept is held in Eastern Christianity, where it is said that God cannot be seen, but you must see God to realize that he cannot be seen. Is all this said to confuse and mystify us? No, but it does have the purpose of our giving up the hopeless attempt to comprehend Brahman intellectually. So the teacher says that to think we know Brahman when we have just glimpsed a hint of its existence is a mistake. The clever student, however, points out that we can dimly know something of Brahman. He then points out that when come to truly know Brahman, we will understand that we both know and do not know Brahman, that it is foolish to say either, I know Brahman, or I do not know Brahman. In wisdom, the two go together. If you still do not get the idea, do not worry. The Upanishad author assumed we might not, so he gives us this verse to clear things up. He truly knows Brahman who knows him as beyond knowledge. He who thinks that he knows, knows not. The ignorant think that Brahman is known, but the wise know him to be beyond knowledge. Practical experience: the knowledge of Brahman is not an intellectual matter, and neither is it incapacitating, despite the common misconception that mystical vision renders us unfit for practical life. So the next verse tells us, he who realizes the existence of Brahman behind every activity of his being, whether sensing, perceiving, or thinking, he alone gains immortality. Through knowledge of Brahman comes power. Through knowledge of Brahman comes victory over death. To live in unbroken consciousness of God is liberation. Liberation is possible even here in this world, while living in the body. For the Upanishad continues, blessed is the man who while he yet lives realizes Brahman. The man who realizes him not suffers his greatest loss. When they depart this life, the wise, who have realized Brahman as the self in all beings, become immortal. The blessed is the man who while he yet lives realizes Brahman. The man who realizes him not suffers his greatest loss. When they depart this life, the wise, who have realized Brahman as the self in all beings, become immortal. Swami Nikhilananda renders this verse, if a man knows Atman here, he then attains the true goal of life. If he does not know it here, a great destruction awaits him. Having realized the self in every being, the wise relinquish the world and become immortal. Here and now it is affirmed over and over in the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita that perfect realization and liberation is possible even here in the world. This is one of the glories of Sanatana Dharma. It does not hold out some vague by and by hope to be realized only after death, a sure trait of fraudulent religion. The truth of the eternal religion, including yoga, can be proven at every moment of our life, just as advances in science, especially in physics and astronomy, reveal the truths intuited by the sages of India thousands of years ago. We need to hold firmly to the fact that we can overcome ignorance and bondage in this very lifetime, that we need not think it will take many incarnations to come to enlightenment. The Bhagavad Gita, particularly, emphasizes the immediacy of our spiritual potential. Faith, another trait of false religion, is not needed, either. Our practice of yoga and the resulting maturation of consciousness will enable us to see, experience, and demonstrate the great truths of the Upanishads. What about doubts? They mean nothing, any more than blind beliefs. In some instances, a negative rejection of truth on the subconscious level masquerades as doubts and can hinder our progress. But honest doubts cannot. I could cite for you many instances in which I not only doubted something, I denied its possibility, but still I came to see for myself the truth of what I had not believed. My practice of yoga kept pushing the frontiers of my insight into areas that I had ignorantly thought were superstition or silly. And my doubt and denial did not delay even for a moment my coming to understand the truth I had disbelieved. This is why no scripture of India is considered to be the word of God, the supreme and final authority. Scriptures, like spiritual teachers, can only point the way, but they cannot definitively state the truth. Yet through interior development there is nothing that can elude the yogi in his quest for reality. This is why Krishna speaks of Abhyasa Yoga, the yoga of practice, as the foundation for those who wish to really know. The great loss: those who do not realize God suffer the greatest loss, for they lose themselves and God. What, then, is left for them? Nothing. Desolate they wander in the desert of their own barren minds and hearts. Shankara says that the Mahadi Vinashta, the great destruction, is interminable birth and death in the material world with all its attendant pains, sorrows, and fears. The great gain, on the other hand, the wise whose consciousness is steadfastly fixed in God, turn away from the world, or more exactly, from the bonds and blandishments of the world, and become immortal, Amritam Bhavanti, by entering forever into immortal Brahman. Blessed are those who live their lives in the perspective of this single verse. Realization and attainment shall be theirs. For them immortality shall be their assured and eternal future. Approaching Brahman, the Kena Upanishad is quite brief, and now concludes with a story and a short reflection on the story. Here is the story: the victory of the gods. Once the gods won a victory over the demons, and though they had done so only through the power of Brahman, they were exceedingly vain. They thought to themselves, "It was we who beat our enemies, and the glory is ours." Brahman saw their vanity and appeared before them. But they did not recognize him. Then the other gods said to the god of fire, "Fire, find out for us who this mysterious spirit is." "Yes," said the god of fire, and approached the spirit. The spirit said to him, "Who are you?" "I am the god of fire. As a matter of fact, I am very widely known." "And what power do you wield?" "I can burn anything on earth." "Burn this," said the spirit, placing a straw before him. The god of fire fell upon it with all his might, but could not consume it. So he ran back to the other gods, and said, "I cannot discover who this mysterious spirit is." Then said the other gods to the god of wind, "Wind, do you find out for us who he is?" "Yes," said the god of wind, and approached the spirit. The spirit said to him, "Who are you?" "I am the god of wind. As a matter of fact, I am very widely known. I fly swiftly through the heavens." "And what power do you wield?" "I can blow away anything on earth." "Blow this away," said the spirit, placing a straw before him. The god of wind fell upon it with all his might, but was unable to move it. So he ran back to the other gods, and said, "I cannot discover who this mysterious spirit is." Then said the other gods to Indra, greatest of them all, "O respected one, find out for us, we pray you, who he is." "Yes," said Indra, and drew nigh to the spirit. But the spirit vanished, and in his place stood Uma, God the Mother, well adorned and of exceeding beauty. Beholding her, Indra asked, who was the spirit that appeared to us? That, answered Uma, was Brahman. Through him it was, not of yourselves, that you attained your victory and your glory. Thus did Indra, and the god of fire, and the god of wind, come to recognize Brahman. The divine power. This is a very straightforward account. The gods are mostly the intelligent faculties of the individual human being. The doctrinal element is very simple, the senses and mind cannot comprehend Brahman, but its truth can be revealed by the divine feminine aspect of God, Mahashakti or Adishakti, the great, primal power that is the dynamic aspect of Brahman, the Prakriti, divine creative energy that is inseparable from Purusha, the Supreme Spirit. God the Father is unmoving consciousness, whereas God the Mother is moving consciousness. The entire field of creation is Mother, the Father being the transcendental witness of her manifestations. The Mother is the divine ladder which we ascend to the bosom of the Father. Prakriti proceeds from Purusha, the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father. The fundamental idea of the dance of the creative energy before the face of the Supreme Spirit is found in the book of Proverbs, where she speaks of herself, saying, "The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his ways, before he made anything from the beginning. I was set up from eternity, and of old before the earth was made. The depths were not as yet, and I was already conceived. Neither had the fountains of waters as yet sprung out, the mountains with their huge bulk had not as yet been established, before the hills I was brought forth, he had not yet made the earth, nor the rivers, nor the poles of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was present, when with a certain law and compass he enclosed the depths, when he established the sky above, and poised the fountains of waters, when he compassed the sea with its bounds, and set a law to the waters that they should not pass their limits, when he balanced the foundations of the earth, I was with him forming all things, and was delighted every day, playing before him at all times, playing in the world." The Divine Mother dances the dance of creation before the witnessing Lord. Although Prabhavananda used the expression Uma, God the Mother, the Sanskrit phrase is Uma Himavadim. Uma in Indian history, was the daughter of King Himalaya, and so was called Himavati. She was considered a manifestation, avatara, of the Divine Mother aspect of God. Uma is a name often given the divine power. But Shankara has a different, and interesting interpretation of Himavadim. He say it means one who was as though attired in dress of gold. This is most intriguing, because in the Bible we have similar imagery of the Divine Mother, the Queen, sometimes called the King's daughter because she emanates from the King, being dressed in gold. David wrote, "Upon thy right hand did stand the Queen in gold of Ophir." And a few verses later, the King's daughter is all glorious within, her clothing is of wrought gold. In the book of Revelation we find, there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun. In this instance the gold is the light of the sun. The elements, the god of fire, the god of wind, and Indra, these excelled the other gods, for they approached nearest to Brahman and were the first to recognize him. As said above, in this Upanishad story, the gods are mostly the intelligent faculties of the individual human being. However, Agni, Vayu, and Indra are representative of the primeval elements fire, air, and ether. These are closer to the self, to Brahman, than are the earth and water elements, whose faculties are smell and taste. The faculties of fire, air, and ether respectively are sight, touch, and sound. In meditation we see light of various colors, experience sensations that are the inner modes of touch, and in our silent japa of hear the inner mental sound. These are three revealers of the presence of the self/Brahman. However, but of all gods Indra is supreme, for he approached nearest of the three to Brahman and was the first of the three to recognize him. The etheric body is the nearest to the self, and its faculty of sound is that which unites our consciousness with Brahman. Thus etheric sound is the supreme God by which we recognize, perceive, spirit. Brahman in all, Brahman and Shakti, power, are in reality one. Sri Ramakrishna often used the simile of fire and its power to burn. Fire is the Purusha and the burning power is the Prakriti. It is not amiss to say that Prakriti is the effect of the presence of Brahman, is Brahman itself. The Upanishad recapitulates this, saying, "This is the truth of Brahman in relation to nature, whether in the flash of the lightning, or in the wink of the eyes, the power that is shown is the power of Brahman. This is the truth of Brahman in relation to man, in the motions of the mind, the power that is shown is the power of Brahman. For this reason should a man meditate upon Brahman by day and by night. Wherefore, Brahman is the adorable being in all beings. Meditate upon him as such. He who meditates upon him as such is honored by all other beings. It is the presence of Brahman which draws us to seek after or value an object. As the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad says, it is not for the sake of the husband, my beloved, that the husband is dear, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of the wife, my beloved, that the wife is dear, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of the children, my beloved, that the children are dear, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of wealth, my beloved, that wealth is dear, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of the Brahmins, my beloved, that the Brahmins are held in reverence, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of the Kshatriyas, my beloved, that the Kshatriyas are held in honor, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of the higher worlds, my beloved, that the higher worlds are desired, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of the gods, my beloved, that the gods are worshipped, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of the creatures, my beloved, that the creatures are prized, but for the sake of the self. It is not for the sake of itself, my beloved, that anything whatever is esteemed, but for the sake of the self. The proof of this is the fact that when we successfully meditate on Brahman, other sentient beings will sense the presence of Brahman in us and value us accordingly. It is now up to us. The teaching is wonderful, but it is not enough. The student of the Upanishad sage intuits this, but comes to a wrong conclusion, asking, "Sir, teach me more of the knowledge of Brahman." But the teacher responds, "I have told you the secret knowledge." Naturally, the student will assume, as would we, that the secret knowledge is the philosophy about Brahman, etc. Therefore the teacher continues, austerity, self-control, performance of duty without attachment, these are the body of that knowledge. The Vedas are its limbs. Truth is its very soul. The importance of this perspective simply cannot be exaggerated. The secret knowledge is not philosophic formulations, it is practice, what Krishna calls Abhyasa Yoga, the yoga of practice. The Vedas are only its adjuncts. Truth is at its heart to be realized by the practitioners. Tapasya, self-mastery, and karma yoga form the body of the secret knowledge. There are no effects without a cause. These three cause the knowing of Brahman. About which the sage concludes, he who attains to knowledge of Brahman, being freed from all evil, finds the eternal, the supreme. End of Kina commentary.